Good, good evening, everyone. We start the today's session, very ambitious session related with the material we are following during these 3 weeks, which is a very interesting data analytic application, which involves a lot of components, named sentiment analysis. And in this application, we are going to work with what is the big chunk of unstructured data, which is text data, free text data, with the purpose to do sentiment analysis. And since this application has several very interesting requirements, we are going to use advanced technology, which is in-memory computing, which is new way to work with big data. Why we are going to use new technology? Because of the requirement of this application, we need to go to something different than Hadoop and Spark in order to achieve a result. So again, in this class, Big Data Analytics, in order to learn some portion of what is big data analytics, which is huge subject, we have chosen relevant application, which will give you email to let me know you're done. I'll turn delivery. Excuse me, can you mute yourself?
Yeah, so just confirm, I think it was just your 2 accounts, right? So you both have the national account.
Okay, I cannot continue this way. Everyone, please stay in mute and don't interrupt the class. Thank you. We are going to continue with what is in-memory analytic technology for this application. So the session today, besides quick overview of the topic and the technology involved, we are going to do a walkthrough through the most important thing to keep in mind for the practical hands-on experience you are going to get with the technology to use and perform sentiment analysis. So first, what is in-memory computing and why we are going to do for this application? As the name indicate, that means the processing is gonna happen at very fast step in the RAM of the computer. That is the original definition of in-memory computing, and it specially applied to problems which require very fast access to huge amount of data and to perform and obtain very rapidly analytical result like reporting and different big data application. And our application for these 3 weeks fall in this kind of definition. So the most important benefits are better, faster, and very important, cost effective. If we cannot keep the third component, which is cost effective, faster is not enough to be useful for the businesses for this type of application. So the purpose is to get, like any business analytic application, is to get competitive advantage. And in this kind of application, faster result give competitive advantage, but it has to be obtained with cost-effective technology. So we have to keep in mind better, faster, and cost-effective. These are the 3 components which we need. What kind of application actually need this type of technology? I have several of them. They are many. I have selected several of them here in this slide. Following, for instance, application which analyze loyalty cards for 5 million members, and the result has to be available in minutes. Or a wireless provider which is implementing an aggressive marketing initiative and needs to obtain the result immediately in order to blast the next messages the next message to all customers. So these are kind of applications which need actually better, faster, and of course, cost effective. Another very important application is smart meter. Think about local government, which runs the smart meter in the city and collect sensor information all the time. The result of collecting and processing the information of this sensor needs to be obtained immediately, because the results are used to, for instance, to direct the traffic in the city. If you don't obtain the result in a minute, the result is meaning it has not, let's say, any application value. So I think with this type of application, like the smart meter, wireless provider, loyalty card, or point of sale data in some promotional campaign, which you need to blast the message in a minute, based on the collected information, are very relevant application for which we are talking today, that really needs to use a disadvantaged type of technology, which is in memory processing. Of course, like any benefits, there are challenges. And one of the challenge is that even with the today advancement in producing a very cost-effective RAM, the example I showed in the previous slide are not achievable in physical RAM. Even with the cheapest RAM today, we are talking about huge amount of data. So this initial definition of in-memory processing, to apply the brute force of processing data in physical memory is not sustainable for a huge amount of data we talk in the example application. So the advancement of technology, we are talking about of modern servers which are capable to work at the speed of the CPU. I want to stress on this. Speed of the CPU is the higher speed, which is much higher than the speed of RAM. Why? Because the speed of RAM has a bottleneck to access the bus between the CPU and RAM. So the speed of the CPU is the higher possible speed, and this is actually the target of the today technology, of the today modern technology, speed of the CPU. The other important component beside the speed, the cost effective, is also, let's say, achieved by the today modern technology of in-memory processing, because traditionally we talk about $5,000 per gigabyte. This new technology today, the same gigabyte costs less than a penny. So all these requirements of cost-effective, better and faster with the modern technology we are talking about today are achieved. And we are talking about technology which many of the main players in analytics today have. IBM has a patent which is named BLUE. It stands about nothing. It's just named BLUE. Don't think about finding meaning beside the B, L, and U. It's just the name IBM gives to the patents. They patented this technology. Other company, they also have, the main player in this, they also have similar patent, and they also run in-memory computing with their technology. Example are Oracle. They have their patent in memory technology. AWS, they have Redis. Microsoft also have their in-memory computing. So we are talking about all major players in analytics today. They have similar technology, and we are going to work practically with one of them. All they are very similar. All they, let's say, respond to this need of faster, better, and cost-effective. And for instance, the one we are going to be able to work practically and get count of, the IBM Blue, which is through the DB2 warehouse on cloud, which we are going to use, has built-in analytic, which is RStudio is built in with predictive modeling and business intelligence tool. So very important to do in-memory analytic. More than just in-memory computing, we're talking about in-memory analytic when you have, beside the computer power of in-memory computing, embedded predictive modeling through tool like RStudio. So you see how complex, how many buzzwords we are using for this application for sentiment analysis. We are using all these, let's say, advanced technology and buzzword. So regarding the IBM technology behind the DB2 warehouse and cloud, you can read if you have some computer science interest. I have summarized in this slide the most important key point, which actually are telling you why this advanced technology, why this pattern actually work at cost effective. They are something like prefetching of data. Not all the data are in memory all the time. Advanced processing, which do not require that the whole data set is in memory and fit, and still the processing can happen at very high speed. Also, no decompression is required, data skipping, and many other very interesting technological points from point of view of computer architecture, which you can learn more in related references. What we need to stress more in this class is in the analytical part, how this technology can support my analytical task to do, for instance, sentiment analysis. And this is our main focus. How RStudio built-in capability of predictive modeling can help do analytical problem and give me, let's say, competitive advantage with respect to other similar businesses. Here I want to open parentheses in this slide, which is titled MPP architecture. It's very important, even we don't care as data analysts too much about the architecture, to have this basic idea. Why we talk here about different architecture and not about Hadoop? Why we don't do this in Hadoop? Isn't Hadoop the big data tool? Well, it happened to be the beginning, solve many problems, but for problem like this, which require, let's say, analytic in very short period of time, Hadoop is not adequate tool, because Hadoop is for, let's say, for processing which doesn't require a streaming of data, which doesn't require very fast processing. And the difference is that what we have here in memory analytic architecture, we have what is named massive parallel processing, which is different than distributed processing, which is behind Hadoop. Behind Hadoop is distributed processing, and we talk about this in the beginning of the course, where the processing is built to the data and is distributed along distributed data architecture, but it cannot process in parallel. When you need very fast processing to happen in parallel, you need different architecture, and so this is one of the architecture we are going to work for the problem of sentiment analysis, exploiting the capability of DB2 warehouse in cloud, the IBM version. Other very important thing between MPP in distributed is the scalability. MPP architecture, and specifically Blue of IBM, is scaling out linearly. What that means? In general, if you have a single server which needs for the processing for which you will need 1 hour to process, and you add 4 more servers, your processing time linearly is gonna drop to 15 minutes. This is scaling out linearly, which is not the case in Hadoop. In Hadoop, you add cluster, but the performance doesn't increase linearly. And this is the difference, one of the basic let's say computer architecture difference between parallel and distributed computing, which each has place to be used, each has advantages and disadvantages, and we have chosen to exploit in this course different architecture which serve different purposes, so you have this broader point of view what is possible to do with different architecture. Our main interest here is in the predictive modeling embedded, which is through the RStudio embedded, and running the different predictive modeling, you name it. I have related here them in the slide with association analysis, network of term, come-in, linear regression, and you name it. So our most important task will be to run analytics natively in these databases without all these traditional extract, sense, stage, and then process. Very important experience. And here I want to mention that there is possible to connect to that our capability to connect with external application and SQL-based tool. Here I want to open parentheses and talk a little bit about SQL. It has been a hype for many, let's say, since Hadoop took over processing on big data. It has been too much talk about NoSQL databases. And at some point we were thinking, that's it, SQL databases are gone. That's not the tendency in the last 3 years. In the last 3 years, we see this merge between SQL and NoSQL, and you can even perceive this by the way we have been working with different tools. You saw SQLite 2 on top of Hadoop, Spark, and now you will use also SQL on DB2 warehouse. So this is this natural merge between SQL and NoSQL, and you have to keep this in mind while we stress in things like SQL. And this is just the today tendency, which is the reality, and we are using whatever is the, let's say, the most advanced data analytic tool and processing out there to do the practical work for the assignment in the class. This is a very short overview regarding the application we are doing and the technology we are going to use for the practical part of this application. I also want to stress about doing everything in the cloud. Why we are doing everything in the cloud? This is the reality. Today, businesses are doing most of the information technologies already in the cloud, and this is just because very naturally cloud has established as the new computer architecture, information system architecture for all businesses. And of course, analytic as part of the businesses is run in the cloud. This is the industry requirement. So we are working all the application in the cloud, the way businesses are demanding today, and the way you will be asked in your future job to work. So this should go very naturally. And very quickly, why the cloud has prevailed? Because of the cost advantage, where the businesses don't need to pay for upgrade, for technical personnel, for energy consumption, but most important about scalability. I want to stress very much about scalability, why every business is going to the cloud. Traditionally, every business had server running the application for the business, which the server was full or 90% load on Monday or Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, it was at 50, on Friday on 40, and Saturday and Sunday was at 0%. So you have infrastructure which was loaded only portion of the time. So going in the cloud and using the architecture as a service in the way you need on demand, let's put it this way, and scalable is the biggest advantage of the cloud. You don't need this idle architecture, information technology infrastructure to stay in your business and be used only when it's needed, and then you pay like you are using it for the day or the time you are not using. Moreover, cloud provides very well for what is collaboration, and you know that in the today technology, most of the tasks are collaborative tasks. There is not such a thing to work alone, which give also the possibility to work flexible from home. And that are just portion of the advantage which has permitted that cloud is already accepted computer architecture, and everyone, like it or not, is going to it because has to embrace it because of the advantages. And because of this, we are doing everything in the cloud, and you will have to learn how to work. Now, if you think you can do, for instance, this hands-on, in the RStudio you have installed in your computer, this totally defeats the purpose of the assignment. The purpose is to work in real embedded analytic environment in the cloud. So my point is, take advantage for what we are teaching you and try to do the way the assignment is designed, just to get the practical taste and some practical experience working in the cloud in embedded analytic environment like RStudio embedded in the DB2 warehouse in the cloud. And of course, in order to do that, you will have to learn how to work in the cloud. In the cloud is working like, why the cloud is more cost effective? Because this is collaborative environment in which we share resources. As soon as you go to the cloud, you share computational resources with other users. So when you share, you have to obey certain rule. The same way you obey the rule, the way you use water, electricity in your house. You don't open the window in the summer when your air conditioning is working just to get constant air from outside. The same way you don't open the water and never close the faucet. So it's the same concept of using shared resources. That's why many of the services you will see, they have capacity hour. And the thing is, in order for the cloud to be effective and cost effective, it has to be a rule for the user. This is not just like, oh, everything is for me and I can do whatever I want. It doesn't matter. I sleep, I go to the movie, the resources are there. These are shared resources, and you must understand that this is not limitation of the infrastructure we are doing. This is just the natural, native way to work in the cloud. So all this 50-hour capacity unit limit per calendar month is the natural thing which we have to learn to work naturally in the cloud environment. Every provider has a different type of rule, and these are the type of services we are using. So with this, I want to stress why we talk specifically about RStudio 50-hour limit per calendar month, which actually the 50 capacity hour are equivalent to 100 real hour, because each RStudio consumes 0.5 capacity during each actual hour. So what you have for the month of July is 100 actual hour to work, which is plenty of time to work in the practical thing. If you think the time of dedication you have to put for the practical part of the assignment. So it's very important you follow the instruction and you just exit the studio appropriately with the Q command, not by closing the browser tab. It doesn't work. By closing the browser tab, you do not properly exit the RStudio, and it continues running and will continue consuming hours. So keep all this in mind in order to be successful. At this point, I think I can take several questions before proceed to the walkthrough, which I'm going to give the slide to Elena. Are there any questions? If they are not a question at this point, we can keep the question for the end. And Elena, I will stop sharing, and it's gonna be better for you that you share your screen. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. So which slide did we stop on?
I stop in slide number. Okay, you start in this one.
Picture.
And 11.
Yes. Okay. So
Okay.
I'm going to.
Okay. Let me stop sharing. Okay. Here you go.
Okay. Oops. Sure. All right. There we go. So I hope you can see my screen, right?
Yeah, just put in play mode.
Oh,
The
what I
full
did
screen.
was oh, okay. Well,
Down.
I usually don't do that, but that's all right.
No, this for the PowerPoint.
Yeah, I'm on the PowerPoint.
In presentation. No, that's not.
It's my presentation.
No, that's not presentation anyway.
Yeah. So
Is in the down, Elena, look, you have several icons just before that. Click on this one.
Which one?
Which is full screen, which is presentation mode. Presentation mode for PowerPoint, not for Zoom.
That's all right, because
Okay, anyway, do whatever you want. We're not gonna discuss this now.
All right, so let's see, we're looking at the big picture. So basically, first you're gonna define the business problem that you're trying to solve, right? You're gonna read the data set description. What is the data about? Like in this case, it's an airline, right? So you're gonna take the CSV file from assignment folder. Do not open it, just download it and upload it to DB2 warehouse on the cloud. You want to follow the instruction, okay? Then you're gonna check the log for any errors and warnings. There should not be any, okay? But if you get some, then it means that something went wrong, all right? You're gonna check the table's metadata, and you're given a query in a walkthrough how to do that, right? And then you want to make sure that the number of columns, right, matches the number of columns in the CSV file. Well, after you upload the CSV files, then you can open it, but do not open the CSV file before you upload it, because it's gonna mess up the date formats, okay? Then you're gonna run your analysis. You're gonna use the SQL, and you're gonna use R to analyze the data, and then you're going to do a write-up. You're gonna interpret your findings, and you're gonna reflect on your experiment, the limitations, and what you could do in your next study, right? Of course, there are some important rules in here, and I'm not sure how to stress it, that do not submit the tickets to IBM unless we instruct you to do that. They don't know what your homework is, right? They're not gonna help you with R errors. That's something that you need to troubleshoot and ask TA, all right? Do not cancel your IBM Cloud account. Well, somebody did that before, and you're gonna lose everything. Do not upgrade the R version, which is integrated in the environment. Do not make any upgrades, okay? Now, here you want to have only one instance of a DB2 warehouse on a cloud service, unless instructed otherwise. There are some exceptions once in a while, but only one instance. Do not install any R packages. The only one you can install is the Snowball C, the one discussed in the walkthrough, that's it. Now, you don't want to open the application in multiple browsers, multiple tabs. Well, you might run out of hours twice faster. I mean, I've seen people do that. When the load process is running, don't stop it, because when you actually stop something, it starts another process to stop. So there could be problems. Here, this one, I'm not sure how to stress again. Do not copy the SQL code to Microsoft Word, because the code gets corrupted, and then you cannot really fix it. You can, you'll have to redo it from scratch. The characters got introduced, like the quote, Microsoft Word quote is an example, and some characters are hard to find. So please, please, please don't do that. Use the Notepad or Notepad++ is good. WordPad is not good because you don't want to use rich text format, okay? Now, imagine that you don't have a browser back button. That's not good. Use the navigation menus, because you might end up losing your work. For the RStudio, do not use the X button. You want to exit properly. And then also you want to make sure that all your environments are stopped, right? The same way that you did for the Spark assignment, right? Here, I want you to learn how to debug the R code. At the same time, I don't want you to spend days on the error. You want to post questions, right? Now here, you need to download the file. You need to upload the file first, right? Because there could be some corruptions introduced by Excel to the date formats. Well, it's just from experience. Here it is. You don't want to be the guy in this picture. So this happens when you delete the service. Whatever was created cannot be recovered. So if you really, really have to do that, you need to talk to the TA first to make sure that the work that you did is reproducible, right? So that you can re-upload the files and rerun the SQL, whatever it was, right? Otherwise, you lose everything like this guy did. Okay, now I've been given what not to do. Now I'll tell you what to do. You want to save all files, all code on a local PC. Well, you're working on the cloud, but you want to keep a copy on your local PC as well, because, well, if you run out of capacity unit hours, hopefully you won't, but if you do, RStudio cannot be launched. So the code that you saved on the server, you cannot access it. You can't. If you cannot launch RStudio, well, I'm mentioning it because some of you some of you submitted the assignment too late, but if you submitted assignment too late, then you may have used your July hours to finish the Spark assignment, right? So I don't know the balance you're starting with. So here you have to be extra careful, just in case you want to keep a copy of your R code on your PC. You are working on a cloud, but there is nothing wrong with keeping a local copy, right? When you're done, you just copy paste the code to Notepad, or TextPad is good. Notepad ++ is good, but do not use anything that rich text editors. This is not good, okay? Now, there are some ungraded SQL exercises, and you'll find them in a walkthrough. You need to do them, okay? If it's not graded, it does not mean that you don't need to do them. Well, it will help you upskill your SQL. Then also, if you see any quiz question, right, on an output from a SQL exercise, that's a fair game. Well, basically there are 10 exercises, but I expect everyone to be able to do at least 6, because the first 6 are relatively simpler than the other 4, okay? Other 4 are more advanced, but I think exercise 4 or 5, the output from that exercise, right? There is a question on the quiz, just to challenge you. Now, you want to put the questions in a discussion so that everyone else can benefit from them. You want to follow the instructions, go beyond examples in the walkthrough. By going beyond, I mean in analysis. Like, for example, you have the association rule example, right? In your write-up, you may want to consider the metrics, right? I'm not doing it intentionally in the walkthrough because this is your homework. And also, if you're doing the network method, you might want to consider the subgroups of terms in your assignment, right? And it's for the assignment 3. I mean, for the assignment 3, you'll have to pick 2 methods, right? So I would rather pick 2 or 3 and focus on them, right? Than running like 10 methods and not going in depth, because you want to look at the analysis. That's what it means by going beyond. It's on analysis. It's going a little bit extra in the method, like network of terms. You want to perhaps looking at the vertex degrees. You want to identify subgroups and which vertices belong to more than one subgroup, things like that, right? I'm just giving an example. And, you know, I like quotes, right? The best way to get something done is to begin, right? Just remember it. You begin it, and then before you notice it, it's done. All right, now here is the fun stuff. This one, sometimes you may see this error. It means that you have more than 10 services on your account, right? And DB2 warehouse on the cloud, well, I've seen some people keep on adding multiple copies, which is not good. If you already added the service, all you do is access it. You can access it from the IBM Cloud dashboard, or you can access it from the Watson Studio, whatever way works for you, okay? So here, question. For example, your account is limited to the 1 GB space. At the top over here, at the top, you see how much storage you're using, right? So that's a percentage. If you run out of space, well, hopefully it won't happen, but if it does, then you would have to delete the tables that you no longer use. Now, sometimes, well, if you see create service error, there could be possible reasons that cause it. Besides the limit of 10 services, you want to make sure that you're working on an account where you applied the code, because this service cannot be accessed. It cannot be used on an account where you didn't apply the code. Okay, just keep that in mind. Oh, something very important. I thought it was in the slides, but I may have forgotten to mention it. Do not put your credit card number. I'm very serious, because this cannot be undone, right? You cannot. And that's it. Once you do that, you're going to lose ZTA support. So please, please don't do it, because you'll incur all costs. Okay? So promise yourself that you're not going to do it. Okay, so this is what you need to do. Once you finish loading the data, you need to take a screenshot, right? So the screenshot should show how many rows were read, how many rows were loaded, right? Rows rejected, it should be 0 in this case. But I took the screenshot a long time ago just to show you what could go wrong. If something go wrong, you're gonna see this exclamation here. Notice that 0 rows rejected, but if no rows rejected does not necessarily mean that my load went in as expected. You would still have to check if there are any warnings. And what it was doing actually was some of the text fields contained extra spaces, like a new line space, which was causing, it was treating as if it was reading the new data row. So that's what it was here. Well, anyhow, if you see those warnings, that means something is wrong. But if you use data that was provided in a classroom, you should not see this. You should not see any errors. But you want to take a screenshot that shows also the load start time and load end time, right? So this screenshot was taken just to show the errors. But you want to make sure that the screenshot you take, it has to show your username, right? Because your username that you put credentials in has to match this username on the screenshot. This is very important because you don't want to be connecting to my database, right? You don't want to be connecting to the database that Lanesh created, perhaps. It has to be your data, right? You have to be connected to your database. Okay, so that's a schema name and a table name. Schema is a user in this case, right? Usually it starts with dash. If you're using DB2 warehouse on the cloud service, it starts with dash. Okay. So I'm just going through, the reason I'm going through the errors because, well, I like to teach students how to debug, not just how to do the code. So you see here, this is a problem because you want to make sure, you want to check the number of columns. See, this is a problem, column 10, column 11. And the reason it got added because there were special characters in a code. And to catch special character in Excel, Control J. The Control J is going to catch the it's going to catch the new line character in the text. So if you do that, edit, find, and then do Control J, that's a new line character. That's what I did here to clean it up. And see, this is another indicator. This is another indicator something went wrong. The table space could not be found error. So you could get this error once in a while if you load data for the first time. So, and sometimes you get this error when your session timeout. So sometimes your session timed out, you may get this error. It's possible. Okay, so now here I'm just showing the options, right? When you load data, you're presented with options. You can create a brand new table, right? This is what you'll be doing. You'll be creating a new table called airline_sentiment in uppercase, and you'll be loading data into a brand new table. But in general, there is also option to append new data to existing table. Well, assuming that the data that you're uploading is compatible, so the same column data types and the same number of columns, right? Or also you could override. But again, the assumption is it's the same structure, right? Override means that all data will be removed and repopulated with new data, right? But if you make a mistake, I don't want you to override, right? What I want you to do is, I want you to delete the table. And to delete the table, you go to the Explorer. Well, this is an old screenshot. I should have updated the screenshot, but the Explorer interface is located at, let me show you. They constantly keep on updating the interface. So right now, Explorer, well, see this? You're gonna click on this menu, and this is Explorer. Now, I got this error. Do you know why I got this error? Because my session timed out. So let me do this. I'm going to close this out, and I have the service details open. So let me open console again. My session timeout because I was a little bit idle for some time. Ooh, what's going on? I feel like the screen. Okay, now I see. So here it is. My session timed out. That's what it was. Now I'm going here. This is a menu now. And when I click on Explore, see this? This is my schema. And that was the table, right? So this is what you'll do. You're going to click delete table. And then you're going to run the load again. Well, the reason I'm instructing you to delete table is because, well, just to guarantee, just because in case when you loaded it incorrectly, there are extra columns, etc. You know. Okay, let's go back to our slides. So this is how you delete the table, right? Oh, another thing is that sometimes when you delete the table, the space may or may not free up right away, because when you delete the table, it does not necessarily mean that the storage is reclaimed immediately. So it's just something to keep in mind, okay? Now, well, and you use this approach when the table structure needs changes, right? Usually. The thing is, well, here, this is an indication that the statement ran successfully, because you'll see it, right? This is how you delete data programmatically. You're going to run the statement truncate table, and then you're going to put the table name, and then you're going to put immediate, because you want to reclaim space, right? Well, when you, usually sometimes when you remove the table, the space might not get reclaimed, so you want to put the word immediate. Okay, and then if you try to select something from the table that doesn't exist, you know, you're not going to get anything. Well, actually, wait a minute, truncate, it does not actually remove the table structure. The structure will still be there. What it will do is it will delete all data from the table. My mistake, it will delete all data from the table and it will reclaim the space, but it does not delete the table itself. The structure is still there, see this? Okay. Now, here, I'm going to run drop table. Drop table will, the table structure will be removed, okay? Drop table will remove, but the space may or may not be reclaimed right away, okay? Because in some databases you would do the purge, but I'm not sure if this is an option here. Okay, so that part, it's not in the walkthrough, but you know. Now, this is what happened here. Suppose that you ran your load, everything went okay, and then you got pulled, you know, session times out, and you forgot to take the screenshot. This is what you can do. That's good news. If you go back to the home page, well, here, see this? Those are my prior logs, right? So this was when I loaded this airline sentiment. I can still click here and I can see, right? So the screenshot that you turn in for this assignment and next assignment, it has to show this load start time and load date time. Well, this is very important because every time when we load data, we need to know how long the load took, right? So you have to put the start time, date time, and the number of rows, right? So as you could see, I've been testing some other data sets too. So that's why I have more records in here. So, but if you see the exclamation point, it means that something went wrong in the load. If you see the check mark, it means that everything is fine. And here is the storage that I'm using in my case, right? So if I hover, it's going to show me how much space I have free, okay? So now let's go back in here. I showed you this. This is a review of the SQL statement closes. Now, select, after the keyword select, you put the comma delimited list of columns that you want to select, or you put a star wildcard, which means you're taking all fields from the table. After from, you specify the tables that you want to pull the data from. Where condition is going to filter the row, right? Okay, group by, this actually allows us to group the data. Like perhaps I want to calculate the number of tweets per airline, so I'm going to be grouping by airlines, right? Having clause, we're gonna filter the groups. Like for example, I want to select the airlines with the number of that have more than 2,000 tweets. Just an example, right? I'm going to calculate the number of tweets that each airline has, and then I'm going to be filtering the airlines. I'm not filtering individual rows. So this is very important. Some students very often some students don't understand the difference between where and having, so this is important. Order by, this one is allows you to do the searching. We want to search the output, right? Another thing that I want to tell you is that it will help you avoid the syntax errors. Every non-aggregate column in a select clause must appear in a group by clause. So anything that is not sum, not an average, etc., it has to be in a group by clause as well, all right? So that will help you. And then every select statement, at least in here, must have a select and from. You need to specify what you're selecting and where you're selecting from, okay? The spelling of the table name matters. When you receive an error, the table does not exist, you need to check the spelling, okay? This is very important. It has to match the spelling of the table name in a database, and it has to match the spelling of the column names in the database also, okay? So now, this is important too. You have to do in your assignment 3, you need to have a query with a subquery. What is a subquery? Subquery is a query inside another query, right? It can return a single value, it can return a list, or it can be like a virtual table. For example, I can select a subset of rows that meets a certain criteria, and then I run a select from that subset, and I'll show you some examples. You can put the subquery in a select from, where, and having. Okay, we cannot have it in a group by, and you cannot have it in the order by. I believe there was something along that line in the quiz that was due this last Sunday. There were some questions on SQL statement components, and the reason is you need to know this information for this assignment and for your assignment 3. Okay, so so here, if you put the subquery in a where clause or having clause, it has to return a single value, right? And in the from clause, it could be like a virtual table. I realize it's a lot of SQL terminology, but you're talking to SQL person. Listening to SQL person. Okay, here is an example of one value subquery, right? So this is an example, but let me actually go back and run it. So I like to do the hands-on part hands-on. So let me go back to my SQL. I'm gonna go to run SQL. Basically what I did was I saved the script in here, but again, you want to make sure that you have a copy on your PC, okay? You want to always have a copy on your PC. But what I'm doing here, I'm gonna do insert. Okay, so I have something that I've been working on, and here it is. Here it is. So I want to list which tweets have a maximum number of retweets, just for example, right? I want to list the tweet that has a maximum number of retweets. But here, what I could do is this. I could run a query, I could run a separate query to find out the number of retweets, right? What I could do is that I could find which tweet has a maximum number of retweets, right? Here, I could do that, right? I could find out what is the maximum number of retweets. So I'm gonna highlight this and I'm gonna run this, run selected, right? Okay, so I get 44, right? And then I could do this, I could go select star, which this is what I could do. I could do this one right here. And I'm gonna say where this equals 44, right? So I've got two queries here. The first step, I find out what's the maximum number of retweets, right? In this case, it's 44. Now I'm running another query to see which tweet has 44 retweets. Do you see that? Is it the way to do it? So each time I'm forced to run two queries. Not good, right? So instead of number 44, I'm gonna take this subquery and substitute, right? So this is what I'm doing here. In parentheses, I'm substituting this guy right here, right? I'm taking this guy right here and I'm substituting it in parentheses. See this? So this is what I'm doing, right, in a single step. Okay, I'm gonna do run, and I'm gonna do run selected. Nice and convenient. I get the same output, but I'm doing it in a single step, right? Because perhaps if I need to run this query daily or hourly, I'm not gonna go back and forth. First run one query and take an output and substitute. I'm not gonna do that, it's inconvenient. So I can do something along this line, right? Sometimes you want to check how many data match the selected criteria, right? So then you would just do, you're gonna have the nested subquery where you do that. Okay, I have several files open here. Okay, let me find it, I'll find it. But anyway, oh, actually, wait a minute, here it is. Here it is. This is an example of the subquery. So here, what am I doing is that here I'm selecting the inner query, select the airline. It's going to select the tweet location and a negative reason, right? So the subquery here, it's going to select the airline, the tweet location, and the negative reason. But in here, the outer query is going to take this list and it's going to return the semicolon delimited list of negative reasons for each airline within each location. So here I'm having, this is an example of the subquery in a from clause, right? I'm just giving you an example. And this is more advanced, but everybody has different level of the SQL, but what this is doing is that it's going to produce the comma delimited list here for each location. I'm sorry, semicolon delimited list for each. This is an airline, this is a location, and here it's going to do the semicolon delimited list. But you have to be careful here because there is a limit on the maximum number of characters. I believe once your string concatenation reaches 4,000, something like that, you're gonna start throwing an error. So when you do something like this, be careful. But I'll let you have the copy of this query, okay? But be careful with this. Now, what I'm doing here, this is more advanced, but that will help you. What I'm doing here is that I'm going to have the first column. Column A is going to be the airline. Column 2 is going to be the total number of tweets for that airline. Column C is going to show me the percentage of tweets for airline in column A that are negative. And here is going to show me the percentage of neutral, and it's going to show me the percentage of positive. Well, this is a little bit complex, right? So there is more than one way you can do it. You can use the case statement, or you can use, this is a little bit simpler query, you can use a decode statement, but also I'm using it here. I'm totally against it now because it does not work on some platforms such as HANA. Decode does not work on all platforms, so use case statements. But here what I'm doing is this. Here it's going to count all airlines, right? Here it's going to say if airline sentiment is negative, then 1, else 0. So I'm taking the sum, see this? If the airline sentiment is negative, I'm going to treat it as a 1. If the airline sentiment is not negative, I'm going to treat it as 0, right? And then what I'm doing here, I'm dividing it by total to get the percentage, right? I'm dividing it by total. And here I want to sort it descending. Well, this is a little bit advanced, but the reason I'm showing it to you is that this is not in a walkthrough, right? Because I want this demo session to add value to the walkthrough, right? Here it is. So what I'm doing here, I'm showing the airline, I'm showing the total number of tweets, and here I'm showing the percentage, right? This query here just shows the totals. And I want to limit my output. This one is it's doing the number of positive tweets, number of negative tweets, right, by location. And I want to limit my output to show only the location where I have at least, where I have more than 25 tweets, right? So what is it doing here? Do you see that I'm using a having clause, and the reason is because I'm filtering the locations. I'm not filtering the individual rows, right? So I'm gonna run selected. Here I'm showing you advanced queries. So you're gonna have a recording of this presentation. Once you're done with the simpler queries, go back here and watch, because you have an uncreated SQL exercise. I believe it's somewhere between, is it 6 or 7, something along that line, right? So I want you guys to attempt this. Okay, this is a little bit advanced, and instead of decode statement, I recommend that you use case the way I did it here. Well, it works, but it does not work in all platforms. Okay. All right, so here I showed you how to use the subqueries, right? Those are the advanced examples, and you're gonna have a copy of this, okay? Because I want the demo session to add value to the walkthrough. I don't want it to be a repeat of the walkthrough. All right, so, well, here, this is an error that I could get. And the problem, I got an error here because my spelling of the column name does not match the spelling of the column name in the table. See this? I'm spelling tweet ID instead of tweet underscore ID. Well, capitalization probably does not matter in this case, but I have to have the underscore, right? So first of all, if you get this error, you want to make sure that you're querying the correct table. Well, then you have to make sure that the column name that matches, right? And well, sometimes you want to click on a link to read more details about the error, but sometimes the details could be too technical. Well, the first troubleshooting step, you want to check the spelling, okay? Not sure how to emphasize it, but, well, here, this is another troubleshooting thing. See this here, I misspelled the table name, because the table name is airline underscore sentiment, and I omitted the underscore, right? So that's the reason I got the error. And here, well, some people brought to my attention that unfortunately, you only see the subset of rows. So to find out how many rows your query actually return, you do this. You put select count star, and then you put your actual query in parentheses. Remember, this is a subquery that goes in here, right? And this will return the number of rows that the query criteria is actually pulling. Because when you do this, when you preview, you don't see all rows that actually got fetched by the query criteria. But when you click on a gear, there is a setting in here. See this? You can change how many rows you see. Okay, you can change. Like I think right now it's 100, but you can change it up to 10,000. The number of rows that get returned. So do not confuse the number. Do not get confused between the number of rows that are displayed versus the number of rows returned by the query. Okay. Do not confuse these two. Okay. Now let me go back to the slides. Here, well, this is another error. Invalid. This is invalid operation error. So if you get this, you want to log out and log back in. Well, here I have my SQL correct, but something went wrong. It's probably the session timeout. And this is another indication that your session timeout. Here, well, your credentials are going to look a little bit different than here, because it depends on when you edit. It depends on when you edit the service. So let me go back here. This is a service details, right? So here, this is important. Here you get your service credentials. Depending on when you edit this copy of the service, the credentials might look slightly different. But what's important is your host name and your password, right? And your also your username. Also, when you're running into a technical error, such as being unable to add data, things like that, I want you to provide the host name, because the service instances are located on different host name. Very often, I'm not reproducing an issue that you're getting. It's because my service instance might be on a different server. Well, that's the reason I have multiple instances in my account, because sometimes the student reports a problem and I'm not reproducing. So I'll check my instance on a different server and see if that server has a problem, right? So if you get an error like your username not created properly, or you're not able to load the data, or the service would not open, it's hanging, you want to give me the server, okay? Because you might be on a different server. There are several servers. And then I'll tell you how to proceed. It's all based on the situation. But here, the host URL, this is important. Your username and your password here, right? Because this is what you're gonna use to access the R, right? To access your account from R. Let me go back here. So this is, I went over this. Here, as a possible errors that you can get, the code returns this error. It's because you want to make sure that your username and password match the username and password in your credentials, right? So here, whoever got this error put the password incorrectly, okay? Now, this is a little bit of troubleshooting, and you have this command. You might probably have this command on a walkthrough. So suppose that your query did not work, right? It did not select what it expected. You can do, this command is going to return the tables on your account, right? But suppose that you have too many tables. So here it's going to return the tables that start with error. And here it's going to check if the table exists. So the reason I'm giving it to you is for the troubleshooting, because sometimes you spell the table name correctly, right? So you're going to check if something that I'm querying actually exists, right? If it does, well, then the query does not return anything. What sometimes you want to do is you want to take your query and you want to execute it in a DB2 warehouse on a cloud service. Well, everybody works differently, but sometimes if my query is wrong, I want to troubleshoot it in the database. And also, well, just to clarify, only R, it's hours, takes hours. DB2 warehouse on the cloud, there is no limit on hours. So I would like you to take advantage of it. So practice your SQL, okay? Now here, this one, I'm just showing you, you have some queries in your walkthrough to check the table metadata programmatically. You can run the same queries from R. See this? This is IDDF command. It allows you to run a query. It takes the first thing it takes, it's a connection object. It takes connections, the object that you defined as an input, right? And it's going to take your query as a second input parameter. When you do this, if you try to run this on your account, you have to replace the schema name. The creator is going to be your username. IBM systables, this is a table that stores the information, details on the tables that you have, right? Well, this is for the troubleshooting purposes. And here you want to check the structure of the table. So you specify the table creator, which is you, and here is the name of the table, right? So basically I'm showing you that you may run the query from R, and I'm going to launch RStudio, but before that I wanted to go over a few things, so that I'm not burning hours, so to speak, right? Here, I'm just showing you that, well, sometimes you run either query command to fetch the rows, and sometimes when you check the number of rows that it returned, it did not return anything. You have to check the query, okay? You want to make sure that anything in the query does not is not misspelled. So you want to check if nothing got returned. You want to make sure that your database connection is open, right? You want to make sure that the query is actually working. You want to run the query in the DB2 warehouse on the cloud. Well, the reason is it's easier to troubleshoot because you have access to the actual table structure, right? You can look up, remember, you could look up the table names, right? If you go to Explore, you can look it up in Explore. Or you can run the query programmatically, right? that query is in your homework assignment in the walkthrough, right? I gave you that query. Okay, basically after you load the data, you always have to verify that what you have is correct. Because if what you have is not correct, right, then you're not going to get the right analysis. All your analysis will be wrong. Okay? So here, well, what I wanted to point out is that some of the R commands that you're going to use, right, you're going to upload multiple packages in memory, and some of the commands appear in more than one package. One example would be inspect command. It appears in an association rules package, right? When you want to look at the association rules that got generated, and also it's in a text mining package, TM, inspect the documents. So when you run into conflict like this, you need to qualify the command name with the package name. Like for example, if I have my association rules package in memory, and if I have my data mining TM package in memory, and I want to really look at I want to use the inspect function in a rules package, I have to specify this, a rules, column, and then the command, right, inspect. Remember that if more than one package has a function, right, with the same name, you need to qualify the function name with the package name. Well, in general, it's a good practice to just list the package name. Well, it's a good practice. But if you get an error, something like that, then you need to put the package name. Also, sometimes when you load package in memory, you get a warning. It's going to say that you have another package that has a function with the same name that you're about to upload, right? So that's a warning. So just pay attention to those, right? Here, basically, this is in the RStudio. It's going to show you disk usage. So if you're like me, if you like playing with images, you need to be careful because every image that you create, right, visualizations and consumes the space. At some point, I got so excited, I had more than 100 images, and my disk usage went over the roof. So what I had to do is I had to go to my visualizations in R, and I had to delete whatever I did not need, download and delete. You know what I'm talking about, right? There are plots. I'm talking about the plot section in R. You want to delete what you don't need because the plots use your space. Also, you want to pay attention to the object you have in memory. Like in this case, the matrix, whenever you create large matrices, you have a problem. They take a lot of space. And whenever you don't need to use them, you want to remove it from memory, right? And to remove something from memory is an rm command, and you specify the variable name, right? Well, of course, you can use a broom in here, right? You can look at the environment window in you have an option, list view or a grid view. In a grid view, you can just select what you want to delete and use a broom, right? But remember that the deletion cannot be explicitly undone unless you have the code to recreate. So you have to pay attention to this disk usage. If it goes over the roof, check what visualizations you may have. Is there anything that you may delete, etc. So here I put some of the useful commands. Library is going to list the installed packages, right? Search is going to show you what's loaded in memory. So like I was giving you an example with inspect, right? Inspect is found in more than one package. Well, just to make sure, go ahead and run the search command. It's going to show you that you have 2 packages in memory, something like that, right? And this one, it will clear the console window. It's the same as Control L. This will remove all variables from memory. There is one more, which is not in here, and it's your friend, the help command, right? If I put question mark and command name, it gives me the help page. This is very important part in R, is learning how to read the help pages. And again, this is a reminder about the memory. What will happen is that you, if you don't stop the runtime environment, it will run, I believe, for a couple more hours, and it's going to consume the capacity unit hours during that time. Well, basically, it's 1 hour wasted, something like that, okay? For the DB2 warehouse in the cloud, at the moment, there is no limit. but we know things can change. So here, well, probably most of you remember this stuff, right? Most of you remember checking this. Oh, and the reason it's showing the total is less than 50 because it's showing me the hours associated with the project. It's showing me the hours associated with specific project. What you want to look at instead is you want to look at the here. Watch here. I want to go here, and I want to go to my manage environmental runtime. This will show you the balance for the month, right? It will show you that Yelena was lazy in July. I was very lazy in July. I prepared this code in June. The code I have now I prepared earlier. So I have all my hours, and I need them because I'm going to be helping you, right? I'll be helping you. So sometimes I have to take your code and test. Never know. Okay, now let me go back to the slides. Well, here, well, this is more like it. It's going to show the CU usage. And if you have anything here in the active environment, you want to click on the ellipses and click stop, right? But I have not showed you how to launch RStudio yet, but I'm going to go ahead and launch it just to show you as a proof of concept. I want to show you that it's working, okay? See, here it is. I'm going to select the project, right? Just any project that I created before, and see this launch IDE, and I'm going to select RStudio. It's supposed to launch. If it does not, then we have a problem somewhere on someone's end, okay? Well, because you have to make sure that you exit in the right way. If you're not, then see this, so now it starts in the RStudio, and it will try to recover to whatever it was at the end of last session, but not necessarily. Every time you start the new session, you need to load the package in memory. The package that you're using must be loaded in memory every time when you start the new session. Well, it's going to take a few seconds, but see this? It's showing me how much it takes, 0.5. Now here, this is my disk usage, and what's using the disk is things I have in memory and also the plots that I have saved. Well, see that here? This is a plot stop. This is a plot stop, and I have a lot of, I've been playing around with different dendrograms, with different word clouds, etc., because I have been testing stuff for you, okay? So here, this is a code that you got, right? This is a code that you got. And now, very important, you're not going to install any packages on besides the Snowball C, right? So when I logged in here, I'm going to try to run this first. Let me try to run this and see what's going to happen. I'm going to try to populate this. I'm going to have a problem. See this? This is a problem. Well, it's because I did not establish my connection yet, right? Now, first I have to do this. I have to load this package in memory, right? Here, I'm defining the connection variables, but well, Yelena does not follow the instructions. She just goes, copy, paste the code, bang, 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 bang. Ah, now I got this, right? Now, let's see, so far so good. Well, why did Yelena get these errors? Because Yelena did not follow the instructions. What did the instructions say to do? She has to take her password, right? And she has to take her host name, right, over here. Over here, Yelena needs to go back to her service page. Yelena needs to grab this host name, username, and password, right? And once I do that, it will fix the problem. So here it is. I have everything that needs to be in here in another tab. The reason I'm not giving it to you is because I want you all connect to your schema. I don't want you to be on Yelena's schema, right? Okay, so now I'm gonna go back to that tab. That code you're not getting because I don't want you to be using my schema. Okay, here we are, and just to prove of concept, I'll show you that it's working. I'm going to run. What is this? This is a method. This is a method in the IBM DBR package, and what it does, it it loads, it reads the data from the database, and it's going to load it into the variable, right? Sentiment. If I was doing something wrong with the query, I would probably go back to DB2 warehouse in the cloud and debug the query first, right? So this will populate this data frame called sentiment, right? This one, sentiment, come on. And now I'm gonna check the row count, and then I'm gonna do here, right? So here, what I did, see this? I can do show tables. If I did something wrong, it's gonna show me all tables on my account. Well, in my case, well, here I have the other tables that I was testing, because there are several data sets on the sentiment analysis, and I was just doing some testing, okay? You're gonna do the Coachella and this one, the Floodgate. That's gonna be the assignment 3 choices, okay? Now, here, what this one will do is it will just execute the query. Here, you're just running the query. You're not storing the result anywhere. You just do the print screen, okay? Output to the screen. I'm not going to run all of it because this is your homework assignment, okay? I'm going to leave it as a homework. And here, the reason I put 3 different formats is because depending on what data you use, the formatting of the date could be different, right? So just to prevent some errors that students ran into last semester, I just put this, okay? I just put it here. Okay, and we're using the R version, it's 3.6, okay? Remember, this is the R cloud version. It's incompatible with the desktop version. So whatever could be working on your desktop may not be working here. You're not supposed to be using your desktop for this assignment. But if you run this code in your desktop, it's not gonna work. The reason is there are some packages that come pre-installed in the cloud versions that are not in the server versions. There are also the gaps in the package versions, right? Because this code was written for the server. You have to run it on the server. And even in the live applications, very often, even if you do the web development too, you have to connect to the database. You have to get data from the database, right? So you need to know, anything you do, you need to know how to connect from your R code, right? Or any code that you're writing, you need to know how to connect to the database and how to pull data from the database, right? So you do the front end, so to speak, analysis, and the back end, right? And if I'm running into space difficulties, I would just do this. See, this is a plot. Suppose I don't need anymore. I'm gonna just remove it, and I keep on going, right? I'm going to remove what I don't need, and it will free up the space, the disk usage. Because I've seen people going all the way through the roof, okay? Anyhow, I have been talking for a very good 40 minutes at least. So now I'm giving you a chance to ask me questions or ask anyone question. Guys? Linesh, what happens when people don't ask questions?
Well, then you would start asking questions.
Well, let me make a remark. We have just 2 students. If they don't have question, we are not gonna hold this. It makes no sense.
Yeah. So silence is a consensus. We don't have question. That's it. Well, I would recommend everybody to watch it because it requires watching several times to actually get it.
Exactly. They don't have question at this point.
Yeah. Because this is a lot. It's a lot of information.
There is too much information. It should be digested. So the recording should be watched. And in the classroom, there is plenty of time to ask questions.
And if you have not taken the quiz that was due last weekend, please take it. It's still open. It's still open. Okay. All right.
I don't see even in the chat. So if there are no more questions, we can finish the session today. And thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful night.
All right.
Okay. Good night.
Night.
Thank you.
Linish, I'm sorry. I don't know if you had some remark. I just didn't
Oh, no,
want to
no, I'm
jump.
good. No, I'm good. No, thank you.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Oh, and it was recorded, right?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Yeah. All right. Yeah, because a lot of it is advanced SQL. I wanted to make sure it adds value to the walkthrough. Okay. So I'm gonna stop sharing. Where is it? Okay, good.